You can say what those changes are.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have the addition of item 4C, which is a presentation from Northern Health, as well as we would like to amend the agenda section 5A and B. So we will be reversing the order. So we will do the OCP first and then the zoning bylaw second.
Thank you. Councilor Morrow.
I wanted to say something similar to Council Scott Morgan and also highlight, I feel like I've highlighted this every year, but I think it's, again, worth commending staff on, is the budget or the variance between budget and actual is, again, incredibly small, and I think that's a testament to some really good planning and execution. So, again, kudos to staff on being able to pull that off again.
Other comments? Councilor Nation.
I'd just like to highlight the fact that we've managed to keep the taxes down on this while the staff has done a great job of making it happen, and also to acknowledge that the provincial government has helped this year with the whole pandemic. It's probably affected a lot of communities a lot worse than us, and we've managed to kind of make it through there with the help of them and their grants to help with COVID. Maybe the one biggest thing for us is having to work with our airport, and that's exactly why that grant money was given, and we've got a plan, and it's going to work for that, and it's been, considering what was thrown at us in March of 2020, I think we managed to make it through another year and done a good job doing it, and thanks to staff and thanks to the government and everyone else involved.
Councilor Cunningham.
I can echo everything the other councillors have said, but the one thing that I find that I think is that we should point out that staff has done is we have now started a good foundation for asset management for future councils, which when we first got into this, the coffers were bare, and we were sort of scraping the walls to see if we could find anything else. And since the turnaround with Watson Island and everything that's contributed to this, the surplus and that, it's just fantastic. I don't think people realize how lucky the city of Prince Rupert is. One, to have the staff we have, but two, the position we're in because of that staff. Watson Island's one thing, but there's been so many other things along the way. And I think it's, even though I take staff to task sometimes, I think that's, they should be commended for what's happened over the last 6-7 years.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Ranawa.
Yeah, I would like to say thanks to the staff, and compared to like the last 2 years, no tax increase, and we still managed to keep up with all the expenses and doing a very good job. So thanks to the staff.
Any other comments? I'm not sure how much we can thank staff. We just keep thanking staff. It's been a pretty good couple of years of thanking our staff. I mean, managing $100 million plus in infrastructure investments, not increasing taxes, and still being able to put money, $850,000 a year away into capital reserves and do all of that at the same time. I mean, some people tell me, why don't you do this or fix the water or fix the roads? And what we're trying to say to people is we're doing all of it at the same time. We're fixing the landfill, we're fixing the water supply, we're helping get housing on the ground, we're increasing the roads budgets, we're increasing recreation opportunities, we're keeping the taxes at zero. I mean, this is all happening all concurrently, and to try to do all that at the same time has been a huge challenge, but I think we're seeing a huge success for the community, and it's great to see that our audited financials come back in order, as Councilor Morrow has said, and it's just, we're going to keep doing our due diligence, being fiscally responsible, and slowly but surely moving this community into a better overall sustainable financial position in the long term, so that we can continue those investments for future generations and ensure that in the future there's money there for those folks that some 28-year-old mayor doesn't take over a council position and has to start from scratch. I think all of us have all been in that same position, that we wanted to ensure that we left this place better than we found it, and I think we were successful in that endeavor, and one step at a time, and we'll keep this community moving forward. Councilor Cunningham.
Hi, I was just emailed by somebody that's trying to watch the meeting, says that it's not being broadcast properly, they can't hear it, anything, and it's the Zoom isn't working properly, and also that it's just zooming in on Rosa, so I don't know if it's some technical problem or not, but I thought I'd bring it to our attention.
IT is aware of that, and I am absolutely happy to not be on camera, so I believe that they have taken care of that now, so everyone should be good.
Okay. It's been recording though, correct? This whole time?
Yes. Yes, it has been correct.
Okay, great. For those that missed on their discussion, we were just thanking staff for doing a great job on our financials and not having to raise taxes this year. So, is there any other discussion on this topic? Okay, is there anybody opposed? Motion's carried.
I'd just like to say I will convey your appreciation to the staff. Thank you.
And you are the staff. So to yourself as well, Ms. Bond, because I think you definitely deserve particularly some credit on our budgets. You have worked extremely hard, and I know that you come in on the weekends till midnight sometimes to ensure that our budget gets prepared in time for council meetings. And I know you would never say that publicly, but I will say it because I can. Okay, moving on. A verbal report from our corporate administrator. A request for letter support. Do you want to speak to this, Ms. Miller?
Yes, thank you very much. So we received a request for a letter of support from the Museum of Northern British Columbia to build a new entranceway. So we're just looking for council to authorize staff to provide a letter of support as requested.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council authorize staff to provide a letter of support as requested, moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Manella. Any discussion? Councillor Morrow?
I just had one question in relation to, there was a specific request right at the end for an in-kind donation of municipal services. And I'm not sure if this question is best directed at our CFO or our city manager, but is that something that we're able to commit to in a letter of support?
Yes, I can speak to that. There was a few $100 left, $470 actually to be exact, that was left over in the approved amount for in-kind small variances, so that it can be allocated.
Any other comments? Councillor Ady?
Just to the effect that I think that reading it correctly and envisioning it properly, I think would be a really good addition to what is already a fairly impressive building for our downtown. So I'm looking forward to it.
Any other further discussion? Okay, anybody opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next we have the addition of items 4C. The resolution would read that council directs staff to organize Northern Health to present to council at a future committee of the whole. So, any movers or seconders for that? Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Manella. So, we'll discussion. So, at the last council meeting, we had a discussion about healthcare, and before, I believe we're working on terms of reference for a committee, but I felt that perhaps before we move forward with a committee, that it may be pertinent to have Northern Health representatives actually come and do a presentation to the community on healthcare matters in Prince Rupert. I think we all share similar concerns as we discussed last time, but I don't think we've had them on council for quite a long time, actually. I can't even remember the last presentation that we had with Northern Health. So I thought we'd have a discussion tonight about who we thought would be the most valuable people to invite to that meeting, and actually just be able to ask questions to them and have the community be able to hear what's going on with Northern Health. I know that we've been working with the administration team quite closely, but the community is not getting that information out as well. So I thought this might be the best course of action to begin with, and I think maybe I'll pass it to you, Councillor Cunningham, if you want to share any thoughts about who you think could come and some of the topics of discussion.
Well, I think from a local point of view, our hospital administrator, Julia Pemberton, should be definitely sent an invitation. After that, we can go to the top and ask Kathy Allbrook if she's going to come as CEO of Northern Health. But that being said, Sir Vanessa and Dr. Doppelfore. Cyril is the Chief Operating Officer for the western side of Northern Health, and Dr. Fore is the recruiting officer for Northern Health in the western section. So those two would be very pertinent, I think, to have at the meeting if possible. But those three for sure. Getting Kathy here might be difficult though.
Any other thoughts or discussion? Councilor Edy.
No, I don't know who I'm suggesting this question. I'm simply going to reflect that one of the fears I hear in the public forum is the potential to lose specialists, the specialized services that we do have here. So I'm just wondering whether there is somebody that is particularly well versed in be able to speak to what that's like at the local level, rather than the broader organization. I don't know whether that's appropriate or not, but maybe Councillor Cunningham has some thoughts on that.
Well, you know, Dr. Fore is the actual recruiter. You know, when we put out a call for doctors or that, it usually goes through him. He's stationed in Terrace. Cyril is involved in that. The top of the heap is Kathy Ulrich, who's the CEO of Northern Health. And with the board, they make policy. And, you know, so I think become a general hospital with no surgical capabilities and things like that. You know, we've got a general surgeon right now, we've got an orthopedic surgeon, and, you know, we've got an internalist, but we could start losing those positions if they come up to retirement and they're not replaced. So those are the three people I think would be pertinent to have at a meeting.
The comments? Councillor Niche.
I just want, whoever it may be that comes to this meeting, I want them to be prepared to answer the question of what is their 10-year goal into where they see this community going, because obviously from the perspective of the city and the Port Authority, I mean it's growth, and that's going to put obviously more of a strain on our medical system, and I want to know when they come to present to us, I'd like to make sure that they are at least aware of the question that will be asked of me, and that's what is their 10-year plan of moving forward. Is there a plan of increasing doctors, or replacing the hospital, or whatever it is that they see for us, and I would like that question given to them ahead of time so they're prepared for that question, because I think that's the problem is we don't hear what the future's about. All we hear is what they're taking away or what they're moving to terrace or that. I want to see where they see this town going.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, well, in response to Councillor Nice's statement, that's pertinent. It's very pertinent. I've always said, I believe the epicenter of growth in the Northwest will be Prince Rupert through our port development and everything else. It's restricted somewhat by land availability and that, but I think that's just a minor detail, and it's very important that we have the medical services to support that growth. And it's one of the things both the mayor and I have said numerous times at different meetings, and that we've got to look not 1 year, 2 years, but 5, 10 years down the road. Right now, the first hospital to be replaced is obviously Mills Memorial. It's already in the planning. The next one is supposed to be Smithers, which definitely needs a new hospital. It's very antiquated, and we're supposed to be number 3 on the list, which could put us at 15 years down the road, because capital cost for hospitals is $400 or $500 million right now. So that's something that I think we both the mayor and I know that's the process right now, and that's what they're looking at. Is we're number 3 down the road, but I think it's very pertinent that we let these people know that how important our hospital is to the North Coast, and it like I say, it's a regional hospital. It includes all the way down to the center and back again.
Any other comments? Councillor Ady.
So I'm hearing consensus that this is of interest. I'm just wondering when we might see this conversation take place.
Well, I think it's just we'll reach out to them, and then we'll try to get it as soon as possible. I don't think it should take too long for them to respond and to come and make a presentation. I was just at the NCLGA conference virtually last week, and Kathy and a few other Northern Health reps made a very thorough presentation there that I think that information would be pertinent to be heard here in Prince Rupert. I mean, a lot of the issues we're facing here are clearly issues that are being faced all across the north, and so we're not alone in terms of the issues. So in terms of recruitment and retention, the different services, the specialists, the 10-year plan, these are all things I think would be good for them to speak specifically to Prince Rupert rather than a broad northern sense. And so, yeah, I think we can make that happen in short order. Councillor Cunningham.
We do have a representative on the board of Northern Health from Prince Rupert, and I think we should reach out to her and have her come too. It's, she's been on that board for around 2 years, I believe, and we've never ever reached out and had her come. Also, I don't think we should wait for these people to come before us. I think the Health Advisory Committee is something we should get started. So, I don't think it's going to be a thorn in the side of Northern Health for that. This is just us reaching out to the community and the communities around here to be represented on this board and tell us what they think their needs are so we can advocate for them. These are the people we represent, and I think it's very important that we know what they're thinking and not thinking in that, and whether it's right or wrong. At least we should be listening to them. I think that's very, very important that we do that. So it's other communities have them, and I hear they're quite effective. And I just don't think it's something we should put on the back burner and wait.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All right, is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion's carried. We'll get started tomorrow with the invites. Okay, item 5A will be the official community plan bylaw number 3460. The recommendation is that council give fourth reading to the official community bylaw number 3460 2021. Any movers and seconders? Moved by Councillor Naish, second by Councillor Ady. Any final discussions from our previous discussions on the bylaw? Councillor Morrow and then Councillor Cunningham.
I'm just curious as to the procedural question of why the recommendation was
have been vocal about and disagree with. Now, if you have an existing building, and say it's a retail outlet or a restaurant, and it's allotted so many parking places now, and it doesn't have suites upstairs, and they're going to change the designation downstairs. Say it's a retail outlet, and they're going to put in a coffee shop, and then have retail up there. Now, the existing parking places allotted to that, will they be grandfathered in and follow down, or will they disappear and they will have to come up with new parking places because they've changed the designation of the building? Because a lot of our buildings downtown do not, like, one of the reasons we're doing this is to attract people to live in the downtown area. And most of the buildings downtown, even though they have second floors, they're only part of the retail outlet down below. And a lot of them on 3rd Avenue are backed up against a cliff and have no parking whatsoever. So if you have, add 3 or 4 or 6 one-bedroom or bachelor suites upstairs and have to supply that many parking places for it, and then you have a designation change on the one down below, what happens to the existing parking allotment?
Mr. Mayor, in a circumstance where there's a change in use, and if there is a more onerous parking requirement associated with that change in use, then technically there would be a requirement for additional parking. So all this depends on what the previous use was, and so it's going to be a case-by-case assessment. If there is technically a requirement for more parking, there is the option for a variance. There's option for development variance permit, and there's the option for paying cash in lieu. I would anticipate in the circumstance that you are describing, a development variance permit application may make a lot of sense. Having said that, what we've spoken about previously is the need to have a parking strategy in place so that we have some clarity around those specific areas. I mean, there's an area in town where providing on-street parking is simply not going to be practical or possible with the present configuration of buildings. So that I think we need to codify rules in a parking strategy and deal with the provision of parking that will be required with that in different ways. And we've spoken about cash in lieu. We've spoken about the use of local improvement area funding in order to help fund on-street parking improvements. We need to have that detailed downtown parking strategy so that we can deal with this uncertainty, because this uncertainty is something that is going to be potentially problematic for us going forward. But so the more clarity we can get around that, the better. In the meantime, there is a DVP option, and certainly over the next 3 years, or just shy of, there's no application fee for that, as council's waived that.
So right now in the OCP, there's no provisions for variances to parking. It's if you don't have the parking, it's in lieu of, and that's that. This is something that will be developed after the OCP.
The OCP doesn't have those provisions and wouldn't have those provisions. The OCP is a policy document and would speak to the different policies. It provides some policies, but it also speaks to other policy initiatives that we need to do. And one of the most important ones is as I referenced, the parking strategy as a part of a master transportation strategy. So the OCP doesn't set regulations, it sets policy.
You have a follow-up, Councillor Cunningham, or
No, okay, thank you.
Councillor Winhowa?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we are on the last reading now for the OCP, and everybody worked so hard, staff, council, and our community for this day. On our last public hearing, so everybody, I didn't see much opposition to this OCP, but one particular property owner, they oppose, like they want to keep their same zoning and so looks like it's only one person, but for somebody like that could be their whole dream. Like they bought their property and put their all money, lifelong earnings into their property, and when time comes to uh, do construction, and all of a sudden our OCP can change their zoning. And then I understand like they can go for rezoning, they can apply for that, but that will cost them money and more timing. So I'm wondering like we can exclude on that property from OCP and go with the other OCP. That's my question.
Mr. Mayor, to make a change, I mean, this is involving the zoning bylaw in particular. So I'll speak to that if you like now. But to make a change to the zoning bylaw, land use or density, you will be back to doing a public hearing. And as previously mentioned, there is development that is waiting for this bylaw to be adopted. So the OCP sets policy framework for the zoning bylaw change, and then that zoning bylaw change then enables the other development to occur. And I'm certainly familiar with the property that you've mentioned, and we've tried to and have worked very hard to facilitate an application. But at this point in time, I'm waiting to hear whether or not there is an accepted application in terms of completeness. If you want to make a change at this point to the zoning bylaw, we're going to have to go back to public hearing.
So we can't exclude, right? Like, but I think like they said very loud and clear they want to change that zoning, and they want to keep as it is. So and they want like commercial, and that way like even for city too, like if we have commercial building, city can get more tax revenue instead on compared to residential. So I think somehow if we can give them chance to exclude that would be nice.
Councillor Nish, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to, say a few things. First, I want to thank Rob and Chris for all their wonderful work on the OCP and zoning bylaws. It's been a long process, and they've put in a lot of time and work for us on this, along with our staff. And as much as I, maybe agree with Mr. Randawa, unfortunately, this process, where we're at in this process doesn't allow us to change it. And if we decide to change it, it's delaying the process, and by delaying that process, it's going to stop other development that's in the queue waiting to happen. And this is just an unfortunate timing circumstance, and I think that moving forward, we just have to still work with the proponent to see if we can make something happen. But as far as where we're at in this process, I mean, I don't think we need to do another public hearing or another third and fourth readings in order to make it happen. And I think for us to move forward in this community, it's time now to finish this OCP and move on. And if a proponent wants to come forward with a rezoning application, I'm pretty sure that if they put forward a good project, they're going to have support from our council, which will be seen. So that's about all I have.
Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, that project off to one side, I'm concerned about the rezoning there, but I'm also concerned about the RM2. I agree with the idea of the densification for an RM2 and that, but when you go with the height, taking it from 9 meters to 13 meters, as I pointed out before, there's 2 pockets of RM2 in this city that right now I don't think should have that restriction lifted. You know, one's at the end of Graham Avenue, which is a very upscale residential area with fine views and that. And you're going to be taking the lower side of Graham Avenue and allowing to go up 13, 14 more feet, which is going to be restrictive of the views on the other side. And that's just the one piece. The other one I'm concerned about is between Crestview and Parker Drive with the Eagle subdivision, which is a swath of land there that the city owns, that if you put an extra floor in apartment blocks there, which you will be allowed to do, it's going to be very restrictive of the view of the people farther up the hill on Crestview and that. And it's, you know, it's going to definitely increase the flow of traffic in the lower part of Eagle subdivision. And those are the only 2 areas that, from an RM2 point of view, that I'm concerned about. You know, when you look at the overall picture, it's a great idea. But when you start getting into heavy residential areas and you want to densify them and add a floor in these particular areas where there are views, it's going to be, you know, I just think it's something that should be nipped in the bud now. I don't want to go to another public hearing and things like that, but there's a couple things on this OCP, I've got to say, has been great. It's a fantastic job and everything else. I'm just concerned about 2 or 3 areas in it that I just find hard to support the whole project or whole OCP when I see these particular situations. And, you know, the RM2 is another area that I mentioned last time. I got shot down in flames on it by everyone, which is fine, but, you know, that's my opinion. And that's why we're all sitting around this table. But I'm just concerned about those 2 areas in particular. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's any response needed for that, or do you want to comment, Mr. Buchan, or?
No, I don't, unless there's a specific aspect that you want a response. I don't know if there's a response that I can give.
Okay. Other comments? Councillor Murrow.
I think the only comment I would add is that the process is equally as important as the final product. And so in this case, whether it's the Park Avenue case, the RM2 case, the parking, whatever it is, we're at 4th reading now, we're beyond the public hearing. Any changes we want to make is going to spark a second public hearing. I think if we had wanted to nip these concerns in the bud, 1st or 2nd reading would have been the opportunity to move an amendment. I mean, it's unfortunate that it didn't happen. We're having that discussion now. So I'm not prepared to entertain an amendment at 4th reading after the public hearing has been concluded. I think that would be a disservice to the number of people who are waiting for this new OCP to complete their developments. And I still think there's avenues, again, whether it's Park Avenue or RM2 or parking, there's still avenues to change any of those particular policies, whether that's through a rezoning process, through the parking strategy, whether it's through a building height study. There's numerous opportunities in the future to address any of these things. They're all living documents, and we're trying to do the best we can in real time. So I'm not prepared to entertain an amendment at 4th reading, but I'm willing to have the debate. I would say it that way. I think you'll all know which side I'll come down on.
Councillor Adey, then Councillor Randhawa.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as Councillor Moreau on a number of levels. I think it's unfortunate that we're still in pursuit of the perfect document and we haven't quite got there. But I do think that a great deal of work and a great deal of thoughtfulness has gone into what we do have before us. And I agree that we've gone through a number of sort of hoops in terms of public input and amendments and so on. So without speaking specifically to the 3 or 4 specific concerns have been brought up, I think we have a package that we should move forward on. And in the future, where there are opportunities to accommodate through rezoning or other means, then we should thoughtfully do that too, if it seems to be in the community interest. But at this point in the process, I think it's important for us to move this forward and allow some of these other developments to come forward.
Councillor Winhoa.
So thanks, Mr. Mayor. So like just procedural question, like, so we have first reading, second reading, public hearing. So in public hearing, we give people chance to say what they like and what they don't like. So if somebody say, okay, I don't want this, and loud and clear, and so that like we don't look into that, or how that works, like
Councillor Winhoa, we can make a change after a public hearing based on feedback. But if we make any significant change that requires changes to the zoning of the OCP, that also then has to go back to the public for them to have feedback on those big changes that we just made. So we are always entitled to be able to make a change at any time, including in this moment in time. But what our planner is saying here is that we will then have to go through a public hearing because we're making a change based on what we initially presented at the original public hearing. So making that change means we've changed what we were presenting, and then we need to represent that we're going to make this other change, and then there needs to be a public hearing. In the circumstance of this property that you're mentioning, I mean, it is unfortunate timing, as Councillor Niche says. My understanding was that they have been working to try to get a complete application, and that's an administrative issue there. And whether they're ready or not at this point, that's nothing that we can do as a council to control that particular process. But either way, a public hearing will be required regardless if we go and pass the OCP and then they have to do a rezoning, or if we try to go back to an OCP public hearing just for this particular property. Either way, there's going to be a public hearing at this point. However, process-wise, I agree with Councillor Moreau. Going and doing this for the OCP is not, I think, professional form on our part. If we had amendments we wanted to make at any time on council, we could have proposed and moved motions to make those amendments at any time. It's one thing for us to be saying the things we like or don't like. It's another thing to put a motion on the floor for debate to either be amended or not. And we just have not done that with this process. And generally speaking, I think we have a very complete document that's, not 100% perfect, but it is setting the foundation for the future. And I think we've done a fantastic job of making sure it's reflective of the community's views and values. And based on the feedback we've gotten from the community through multiple surveys, multiple engagement sessions, week-long engagement sessions in City Hall, tons of engagements well before the redesign, plus the whole year-long redesign process where the whole community basically created this vision together with us, and up until the public hearing. I mean, it's clear we have the mandate to move forward now. So, timing-wise, I think we're just in that position now where I personally agree with Councillor Moreau, Councillor Adey, Councillor Niche that we continue forward. And that project in particular is absolutely free to, and it sounds like they probably need more time anyways to work on their project. So if they want to do that through rezoning, then the public will have input anyways on that project, and it will probably reach a place where we'll have a proper engagement with that. And it won't take much longer, to be quite honest with you, for them to move forward with that. But as it stands, we are now where we are, and any amendments we want to make will require another public hearing. I'm not prepared to do that. We did that. We did our engagement. We never made any amendments along the way that could have been made, and now here we are. So I think we should just move forward, and we will continue with the process and make changes as needed as time goes on. Is there other comments about the OCP? Okay, well, I want to thank our planning team and our staff and the community for really helping us with this project. I mean, the amount of forward-thinking innovation that this OCP outlines for the next decade is really going to set a whole new development environment in motion. I mean, as Mr. Buchan has said, there's various developments that are waiting for this OCP to be completed. And I think we're going to see a new streamlined development process in this community. We've changed our development variants, our development guidelines. I think we've created much more of a certain environment. And the past is the past, and we've corrected a lot of the red tape issues that I think has plagued this community for a long time. And I think moving forward, from this point forward, you'll see developments happening in a much more streamlined way, which was just going to be great to see. So if there's no other further comments, is there anybody opposed to the OCP? Okay, the motion's carried, and Councillor Ranhawa, Councillor Cunningham are opposed. Okay, next we have the zoning bylaw number 3462, 2021. The recommendation is that Council give fourth and final reading to the zoning bylaw number 3462, 2021. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Scott Morvan. Any further discussion about the zoning bylaw? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone opposed to the zoning bylaw? Councillor Ranhawa, Councillor Cunningham are opposed, and the motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any reports, questions, or inquiries from members of council? Councillor Adie.
Yeah, I became aware over the weekend through our MP's Facebook page that the federal government is opening hearings into the issues of rail safety. And obviously that's happening on a federal level, but it affects us both locally here in Prince Rupert, but also along the corridor, the transport corridor. So I understand these hearings are expected to occur in June, which means that there's a relatively short time frame. And I know nothing more. I just heard about it this weekend, but I don't know anything more about format, what organizations would be welcome to speak, how they can go about doing that. I would anticipate that there are local voices that would like to be heard. So I'm wondering, first of all, if we can find out more about the hearings in relatively short order so that we can facilitate information to people who might be interested in giving some input into those hearings. And my second question is more for us as a group. Do we see a role for us to play in terms of voicing community perspectives at those hearings, assuming we're afforded the opportunity to do so? Or would it be more appropriate, since we're talking about an entire rail corridor, would it be more appropriate to try and develop a voice to contribute to those hearings that represents a broader swath of the communities that are affected by rail safety? That's a very long-winded question, but I'm interested in what other people may think about that. I do think that it's a fairly rare opportunity, and it needs to be taken advantage of if there is sufficient perspectives that people want to express about rail safety as we witness the expansion that we're anticipating.
Well, to your first, yeah, I think for your first comment there, I think we can definitely make sure the information gets out there. I've been in regular contact with our MP, Taylor Backrack, and we had discussed earlier in the year about him hosting a virtual town hall on rail safety because its federal jurisdiction is one of the challenges with rails. I mean, many people come to us for issues around rail safety, and as most people know, we have zero jurisdiction or authority over the railway. In fact, even the federal government has their own hard time with CN Rail and some of the jurisdictional issues. So at this juncture, that's a federal matter, and I think we have a role to play in terms of advocating for any concerns that residents feel around that. So when it comes to the hearings themselves, I've also spoken with other community leaders in the region well up the line, and I think you're right, Councillor Adie, that probably a bigger, broader coalition of communities working together all on common issues, because really they are the same issues along every community. I've heard consistent concerns that not just Prince Rupert, but anyone that's a rail community has. And this is a Canadian across Canada issue. It's not just about us, but however, we will be seeing a lot more volume coming in through Prince Rupert. So I think us working together with other communities, but in the interim, encouraging people to actually attend the virtual town hall with our MP Taylor Backrack to be able to personally be able to have your input. Taylor is going to he's going to take the lead on this file and ensure that he brings a collective voice to the federal government, which I think is the most appropriate course of action to ensure that community, from local government perspective, provincial concerns, as well as community groups on the ground, and residential concerns, business concerns, and industrial concerns are all heard, because there's another view or another voice on that matter as well around the industry and the prosperity that these events bring to our area. So I think there's a balance in terms of how we have that conversation, and I think that's why he's wanted to create a forum like that. So I think that's something that we can coordinate with other communities to kind of come up with a common lens or common lists of things that we believe are concerns for him to bring to the hearings. Councillor Eddy.
Well, then I would, hearing that, I would just like to express my interest in being a part of moving that forward.
Oh, don't worry, you've already been assigned lead.
Is there an instruction manual that comes with it?
Not in this business, unfortunately. But yes, absolutely. Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, first of all, I just saw this, that we're at the tail end of the National Nurses Week, and I think as a council we should recognize it. It's the nurses have been some of the frontline workers, along with a lot of other people, even people in grocery stores, right down, right, all the essential workers that have been there taking the blunt of this pandemic. So it's nice to recognize that they've got a national week. And I didn't even realize it was there. And for trivia people, it's always during the week that Florence Nightingale's birthday is, which I didn't know either, May 12th. But just that. But a question I have for Councillor Moreau, who sits on our tourism board, is Prince Rupert Tourism Board was given $100,000 for accessible vendor market. And I'd like to know if he has any more information about that.
I'm not in a position to comment on that just yet. I think the details are still forthcoming from Tourism Prince Rupert once the details get fleshed out a little bit more. But it's a pretty exciting project once the public can lay eyes on it.
Okay, and one other thing, I noticed there's almost up to $400,000 for biking trails and things like that on a regional basis, not specifically earmarked for our area. But is Tourism Prince Rupert going to have any access to any of those fundings at all? And if so, or have they reached out to see if they can get any of that funding? Because it's definitely an aspect of our community that a lot of people are looking forward to developing, and some dirt bike trails and things like that. And I've noticed more and more people with the weather improving out biking and that, and I think it's an aspect of tourism that we should definitely be looking at.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire organization, obviously not being the chair, but what I would say is that between the executive director being on maternity leave, we've got a very capable marketing manager in place, and she's been quite successful in stick handling quite a number of grants, not just around trail development and COVID relief, but also wayfinding signage as well. So I know she's been working quite closely with the city on trying to get some municipal input around some of these grant programs, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing that work. And then we're hoping to see our executive director back from maternity leave in the next few months here.
One last question. I can see Lee's getting over. Here we go again. But I've noticed on some of the new paving that was done last year, we're developing potholes in it already in certain areas and that. And I wonder if CNC road builders or whatever they're called will be coming back to be doing any warranty work on this stuff, because, you know, it's sad to see a project that was done less than a year ago, and we're already starting to have trouble with potholes and that in certain aspects of it. And they're not just minor potholes in a couple of places. So I just wonder if we're following up with any warranty work on that.
Yeah, they'll be following up with warranty work. Last year we had the major rainfall to the point where if you remember the paving was delayed for weeks on end, where in the August there and stuff like that. So any work that has additional work that needs to be done, they will honor the warranty work, and they'll come back and do that. So that's on the schedule this year. I know that because I was just having a conversation the other day with staff about that, because I think we're going to be getting our roadworks contract bids out here soon. Councillor Renhowa.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, basically you answered my question. Lots of people questioning our plans for the potholes and our road work this year. So if you have any update on that, so if you can tell people, that'd be nice.
I think we put a bid out for BC bid, as we do every year. In that bid, you can see the actual works that we're looking to do in the community, which roads and streets. But I think the main message, once again, to tell the community is that we always have to wait for the freeze-thaw season to complete before we begin roadworks. And as you know, in April we had snowstorm. Then we had summer, right after that snowstorm. So what happens is our operation department waits until we know for sure that we're not going to have any more freezing, and then we move forward with our pothole program. And so I know that Mr. Long can probably comment better than I can, but I think we're going to be fixing dozens and dozens and dozens of potholes, and then we're going to be doing major roadworks thanks to our new doubles of the roadworks budget. And that'll be more consistent road work the community is going to start to see, and then any warranty work, and then line painting potentially later in the year, Councillor Niche, and all that type of stuff. So the spring is here, and we're moving forward with all our cleanup and road works and maintenance and things like that. Any other comments from council? Councillor Skelton Moran.
I just wanted to send out my condolences to the Layton family for their loss, and just with in my relations over in Bellacala. I know that this time isn't easy. Many of our community members were experiencing forms of grief and loss after this wave of COVID that struck us just not too long ago. And just to know that there are counselors and supports in place funded by the First Nations Secretary. So for families that are going through grief right now, there are supports available and folks willing to show up and support you during these times. So just for the folks that are still struggling and kind of navigating grief at this time, just know that my heart's with you, and that we'll get through this.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, an intended motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, second by Councillor Cunningham. Anyone opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.